Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome. Thank you all for joining us today for this session on leadership lessons in cyber resilience. We are looking forward to an insightful discussion with our guest panelists. To get us started right away, I'm pleased to hand over the session to our moderator for the day, Senior Vice President Value Mentor, Raghu Mohandas. Over to you, Raghu.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you so much, Indu. Good afternoon to everybody who has joined us, and great good afternoon to our panelists as well. Thank you so much for making time to share your insights with our audience today. And I'm really looking forward to a great session. So, as Indu mentioned, my name is Raghu Mohandas, and I'll be your moderator for the afternoon. Been in UAE for the last 20 years, and it's a pleasure to have such great panelists on board with us today. I'm sure all of you agree that this is a opportune time to talk about something like cyber resilience. With all that is happening around us today, I think we all understand that we all have a part to play in how our organizations weather the storm that is around us. And we have to be able to continue offering our services to our customers, right, at the end of the day. So, without without taking too much of time, but I want to also give you a quick idea of about who we are. For some of you who don't know us, Value Mentor, we are a premier cybersecurity services organization. We're headquartered out of Dubai, but we operate across the world today. And in cybersecurity, trust is a very important factor. Trust between you and your customers, between you and your suppliers, right? As organizations, we work in a very interdependent and internetworked business world today, and it's very important that we are able to establish trust. And we offer a wide range of services from strategic risk consulting, security testing, data privacy, security engineering, and managed services. Across the board to a wide range of customers, maybe around 25 plus sectors. And what makes us really different is our ability to offer flexibility and value to our customers. We are extremely well known for our capabilities in cybersecurity, and we've got a large number of customers across heavily regulated industries like BFSI, healthcare, and of course, government across the world. So I'd like to also sort of maybe touch upon why something like this is important even otherwise, right? So of course we have the ongoing conflict, but apart from that, we're also aware that Middle East is just second to the United States in the average cost of a breach. In the Middle East, cybersecurity incidents cost an average of about $8 million per breach, which is almost double the cost of the global average. And governments across GCC have been running several initiatives. So we are aware of what the Cybersecurity Council is doing in UAE and the NCA in Saudi and similar organizations across the GCC, right? And there are several initiatives that are running to transform the cybersecurity landscape in the region. And today we have an opportunity to talk to some of those leaders who are key players in their own industries and in their organizations, and how are they actually putting these initiatives in play? What are the practical aspects of this? And these are leaders who have led their organizations in times of crisis. And we're really looking forward to hearing their thoughts and actions and what drives them, what keeps them going, and how are they converting moments of adversity into opportunity. So today, I'd like to start with our first lady panelist, Shruti Khanna. Shruti is a Dubai-based cybersecurity and risk leader. She specializes in enterprise security strategy, threat management, and cyber resilience. So can we have Shruti on screen?
Yeah, hi, Raghu and everyone. I thank you all for giving me the opportunity.
Yeah. So thank you, Shruti, for being here with us today, and we're really excited to have you with us. Next, we have Weem Munshi is the CISO at Tabby. Weem is our only panelist from Saudi Arabia. Weem has been leading cybersecurity strategy, resilience, and risk management, and he brings great insights on cyber resilience, crisis leadership, and preparing organizations for emerging cyber threats. Thank you, Weem. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for the invite and being among such a great leaders.
Moving on, we have Bhavuk Arora. Bhavuk is a seasoned leader in cybersecurity, technology risk, and AI risk, someone who bridges complex technical issues with strategic business making, decision making. Bhavuk leads the group technology risk and assurance at G42. Bhavuk, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to the discussion with the panelists. Thank you.
Next, we have someone who's a very familiar face in the Middle East cybersecurity industry, Faisal Khan. Faisal is an accomplished cybersecurity leader with extensive experience in information security, risk management, regulatory compliance. He has been recognized among the top 100 cybersecurity leaders in the Middle East and is a passionate advocate for continuous learning and innovation. Faisal, thank you so much for your time and thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me on this panel, and eager to have a conversation here amongst all the panelists here.
Okay. Faisal, maybe I think we've got that muffling again. Yeah, okay. All right. So,
can you hear me loud and clear?
Yeah, it's perfect now. Okay, great.
Okay.
Okay. So I think let's get started. We've got a great power pack session planned, and we have very little time. We've got great panelists, so I want to make sure that we get as much of it, as much information as much from them during these next 45, 50 minutes, right? Okay. What I'd like to tell the panelists is that, please do comment if you have any other opinions when another panelist is mentioning something. It'll be good to have a conversation rather than just sort of keeping it as a discussion. Now, to set the sort of context here for the audience, what I just want to mention is that we are not talking about a particular incident or an event in itself. Now, obviously, we are in the midst of a conflict here today, but we'd like to give the panelists the option to choose their own context, the crisis, disruption, or event that they would like to relate to. Not everybody is affected in the same way by the ongoing conflict. So it's not necessary that they have to specifically lead or start from there, right? So I'm going to leave that up to them and to their discretion. What is the context that they would like to set with respect to the questions that we asked? Okay. So let's start with Shruti here. Shruti, we have all of this crisis and disruption and everything going along. Cyber resilience is such an important aspect of all of this. But when you have something like this happening, right? Can you take us to the moment when like this? Obviously, this was the news story first. Everybody heard about this on the news. We saw it on our Twitter feeds. But when did this start becoming your problem? What were you doing? What was the first call that you made? You can talk about it from the context of your organization today or maybe something in the past as well.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Raghu, for this, a kind of a starting point. So it's a very, very important and, a valid point to start with that when such opportunity, because we are being preparing as teams, as cyber teams, as risk leaders, we're always preparing for this day, right? To protect our organization for these moments, so that they can have they can have their business continuity, they can have their compliance, and our teams are not just having a controls, but are able to support the enablement of the business in this point of crisis. So this is one crisis which we're talking about, but I think any crisis which impacts the business in terms of its revenue, in terms of its security, its assets, is definitely important, and we keep seeing time and again. So and when we keep hearing these around the globe, and we think that it's them, right? It's not us. It's, as you said, that it's just becomes so weird, those moments when those stories becomes ours, and we feel the moment and feel the heat of the moment. And in such situations, like it's just a first-hand experience in the past, like how the most important, because we've been investing so much in our technologies, and we understand that they are very, very important as type of preventive controls. But in these moments, what I felt is that the organization, right, the interaction of the teams, who among themselves, that how the decisions are being made at that time from the top is very, very important. um, it's just not about which team is doing what to stop. Is like the thing happens where there is an utter confusion, and is that what is an impact, what is happening, right? To gauge an impact, which part of the business, which part of the, and how it is happening, why it is happening, because most of the time there is always an ambiguity around it, that maybe this is a disruption because of the network, or maybe it is a disruption because of an attack. Maybe there's always multiple lines of thoughts. Maybe it is an attack, or maybe it is not an attack, like these kind of things. Maybe it's a
Correct.
breach, or it's not a breach. So first of all, to bring and align everybody on the table, the decision makers, and
Mhm.
brief them of the situation, because many times it's happened half of the people are not aware of the situation, and there's
Mhm.
small subset of people who are aware. So I think in this in these situations, definitely more than tool, more than anything, humans and how we respond and how we communicate with each other becomes foremost important. And that's
Okay.
what through these events we realize it, to strengthen our incident response, our communication around that. And doesn't need to be very, very complicated. It's just like having that hierarchy, having those emergency distribution lists where everybody is connected and everybody is knowing that this is happening, and that's why maybe we are having this impact, so that
Understood. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
solution is reached fast.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I think something that you pointed out, right? I think we always think, accidents are things that happen to other people, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the mindset that we have. But I think, and we've all, I think, thanks to God and, all of that, the leadership of the country and all of that, I think we've fairly been
yeah,
cocooned in a manner, and we've never had to deal with something like this, right? I mean, of course, we had COVID and we've had the floods and all that in the past, but I think this was a totally different magnitude. And like you said, I think all your preparation, but when something like this happens, there is always some amount of confusion. And I think that's okay, right? I think nobody is perfect and everybody starts with that. And then it's like, how quickly do you get on track and figure out like whom do you get to do what, right? So awareness, communication, I think is, yeah, it's a absolutely important aspect of this. So yeah, thank you for that, Shruti.
thank you.
uh, Bhavik, was it different for you? I mean, when something like this happened, is there something that that you did first that you think made all the difference in an event or
Uh,
a disruption like this?
well, I've been fortunate or unfortunate enough to have lived through many crises and disruptions throughout my
Okay.
career. So the basic principle is don't panic, right? Like
Mm.
it's the panic is the last thing that you should be doing.
So,
But what typically happens and what Shruti referred to as well is a lot of confusion and lack of clarity, right?
yeah.
So like the first thing I try to do is establish my source of truth. Right.
Mm.
Some incident got raised at the P1 level, got filtered through several channels. And what I'm hearing is it's gone through multiple channels, and I'm hearing a biased view, some kind of layered version, some altered version of what really happened reaches me at the end of the day, right? So
Mm.
I try not to make a judgment at that call. So
Mm.
who do I call at that point in time? I'll probably call the L1 engineer who was of the front line, right? I don't want
Mm.
to call another CXO or something at this point in time because I don't have the facts established. But the investment that you can make up, you can pick up the phone and call that engineer, and he'll be willing to share with you, is an investment that needs to be made during when there is no crisis. So internally within our team, we call them Juliets. So we have, I mean, businesses would like to call them champions, right? You've got champions, but we use the word Juliets internally. So we've got
Mm.
Juliets we have invested in over the years. We've built personal relationship with them. We have invested in their professional development. They are non-security people, by the way. They've got
Okay.
nothing to do with our, but we have established those personal connections with these people in all our operating companies. So if I need the unfiltered truth, that's the first call I typically make because these are the people sitting on the front lines in the trenches, and they can give me an exact factual description of what really went and how it went on, and then I can make a call of how do I need to take it to this leadership. So crisis tests your leadership and what the foundation it was built on. But if you're not invested long term in building those foundations, system tools, everything can be worked around. But if it's a people failure, communication failure, Shruti said you've got a call tree and everything. Yes, some I've seen it. People have a call tree, but then what is my role within that call tree? People don't know that. Crisis tests is a personal test from a people perspective, I think, more than that your governance. You could rehearse all the crises in the world,
Mm.
but when actual crises happen, I've seen everything just fall apart,
Fall apart.
right?
Right. Okay.
So,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
so we say rehearse, 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 but that is no guarantee. So for me, the most primary important task is getting that truth. What is really happening, so that I can first come up with a plan, control, mitigate, and also how to communicate as well. Whether it's upwards and downwards, you got to communicate to the your to the. It's not just, not everything needs to go just to the executive team. If there's
Okay.
uncertainty in the business, your workforce also needs to be clearly communicated as to what's going down.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think great. What was that word that you used? Juliet.
Juliets, like Romeo and Juliet. So the
Okay.
plural of that is Juliets. So it's
Okay.
it's it's an American concept that
Correct.
Okay.
we
It's
we
very
we need.
interesting.
So we
Yeah.
have
I
plenty
I
of
guess
Juliets
I
in the
guess Bhavik,
business.
you need to have the Romeos and the Juliets aligned well
Yeah,
to fight
Aligning
that
the
exactly.
Romeos and
crisis.
Juliets. That's fantastic, actually. I've
Now
never
it's
heard
it's
that being
it,
said
it's just
before.
that because we are almost like quoting them over the years. Hence, we are the Romeo, they are the Juliets.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Bob. That's a great input.
Love that.
Um, yeah. We before we like sort of get into what actually you did, which we'll talk about in the next section. But was there something that surprised you in terms of your own organization's readiness when something disruptive happened? Like you knew it was there, but when it really happened and when it kicked off, was there something that really like you were like surprised by the maybe by the effectiveness of it or whatever it was?
Yeah, okay. Before answering your question here, I would like also to add a bit more about the context from my
Sure, sure,
colleagues.
please.
So I agree with what was mentioned, and I also want to say that we are right now we are talking about the cyber resilience, right? But really,
Right.
it's cyber resilience became like the core area that as a part of the operational resilience. So when we talk about operation resilience, we have to think about all aspects of the business that might impact the operation as well, not just cyber resilience as well. So this is when you get along with all the team, the management, with the team, to really think about everything, including cyber or outside of the cyber, to ensure that there's no any operational impact and to minimize the risk as much as you can here.
Right.
This is the first thing that I want to say, and then we can talk about your question. So honestly, the surprise was a positive one here, and I would say that carefully because I don't want it to sound like
You don't want to jinx
self-satisfaction
it.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
What surprised me was how quickly the team shifted from peacetime mood
Okay.
to a heightened posture
Mm.
without being asked. So they became, this is again what I would say, it's all because we have the right people, right? So analysts who were on shift were checking in voluntarily because we have picked the right people. We have picked people who has very high ownership and commitment. So my incident response leads were already running informal scenarios, conversation amongst themselves. And what that told me was the culture we would build mattered more than any playbook page. And the most important thing is that only work if you have built and you have done the investment upfront. The human readiness was there because we would exercise it, as I said, and we have invested in picking the right people from the starting of investing on the human resources. And it wasn't really luck.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's so valid, right? I think your people are the ones who are actually facing with the challenge, and if you have the right people, then every challenge is surmountable, right? I think that's so valid there. And you talked about ownership and culture. Ownership is a fact that I think we tend to sort of overlook, especially when we are looking at hiring people and training them. It's not something that is really taught. but it needs to be taught. And especially in scenarios like this, you want to have people who can take ownership of that situation and deal with it so that, everybody else, so you're able to reduce that confusion that we talked about, right? And have clarity in what is supposed to be done. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that, Beam.
Yeah. So
Faisal,
Raghu, it's
yes,
like one quote I keep reminding everyone by Peter Drucker is culture eats strategy for breakfast, right?
that's
You
right.
you
Yeah,
you can put in all the strategy if you want, but if the culture is messed up, it's not
that's
going to
true.
work.
Right, right.
Very
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, you want people who are going to stick with you at that time, not just like, it's not my problem or it doesn't fall under my sort of job responsibilities and things like that. Yeah, so absolutely right. Yeah, thank you for that. Faisal, from your perspective, maybe, when you take, like, for example, the first 24, 48 hours when something like this happens, right? Is there something that you look about and think is the most pivotal?
Oh, that's a very interesting question because, Raghu, the thing is that 48 hours is a lot of time, to be honest,
Yeah,
right?
true.
And honestly speaking, if I want to actually lean on to what Pawak really spoke about in terms of panic, this is exactly what the generalized situation is whenever a crisis hits, all right? And this is what is something that we have to contain. We, as responsible crisis managers, we need to understand that there's one decision that we have to take, and that is clarity. And
Mm,
clarity supersedes speed. All right.
okay.
Speed is something that is going to cause haste, and then it will lead to panic, and that even
Right.
leads to a bigger crisis or a disaster situation. So, bottom line, you should not panic at all, right?
Mm,
The first 48 hours, there's an immense pressure to do something really fast. I think it actually starts from the first hour itself, right? When everyone's on your head and they want answers to what's really gone wrong, right? Different
right.
teams see it in a different manner, all right? They see a different side of the crisis. Security see the indicators, the IT sees this as an outage.
Yeah.
Um, Leadership probably sees this as an impact. But if you don't kind of unify this in a reasonable amount of time, and again, between quotes, I'm going to mention reasonable amount of time, right? I think you would not have a response, but rather there would be a lot of noise, right? And this is what needs to be contained
Mm,
because in cybersecurity or any sort of a crisis management, right?
mm,
And I'm talking in general. A fast, strong move can amplify the crisis. So whatever decision we make, we need to pause for a while, need to have thorough understanding of the issue, and calculate the affected radius around us before we actually react. Yeah. I
mm,
mean, because when I talk about crisis management in a collaborative environment, when you're discussing things with the likes of Romeos and Juliets, like what spoke about,
yeah.
right? That synergy needs to be in place. All right.
Mm,
I mean, if you remember the Avengers movie, all right, every superhero individually was powerful,
right.
right?
Okay.
Yeah. However, Nick Fury had to bring them all together to fight the mighty Thanos, right?
Right. Yeah.
And they had to have I mean, they all had to have a solid action plan as well.
Right.
So what I believe is that readiness, and again, this is what Shruti did highlight as well,
Mm,
to sum it up, that I think readiness is the most important factor uh, in any crisis that is about to happen. So we need to be ready before it actually strikes.
yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. So readiness and I think clarity supersedes speed. I think that's something that, I think that's you've brilliantly articulated that. I think that's so important, right? I think sometimes it's just not about coming to a decision, but it's also making sure that I think, Shruti mentioned this, Bhavak mentioned this as well, and I think we also talked about it, right? I think you've got to have the right information and the right people so that
Absolutely.
when you take that decision, then you have at least, you're 70, 80, 90% sure that this decision, this is how it's going to land up, right? You have some control on that. So absolutely, great. Thank you so much for that, Faisal. So now I probably want to move into a little bit more specifics, and maybe we'll start with Veeam, and maybe you can give us a little bit more context around it. Now I know that these are sort of some of these information is confidential, so you don't have to disclose anything that You don't want to, of course. But if you can tell us a little bit about when this incident happened, or when this actually happened, what broke first? Was it the technology part? I mean, I think people, you already mentioned that your people surprised you and they did. So I'm assuming that it was not the people, but from a technology and process point of view, is there something that you can talk about that did not work for you, looking back?
Yeah. Yeah. So in our case, neither broke in a way that require recovery, but I want to be precise here about
Okay.
where the friction was. Okay.
Okay.
So because I think that's more useful to this audience.
Yes. Okay.
And I would also repair what Faisal said. Is it's all about the speed. So the stress point was in the process specifically, and the speed
Okay.
at which our escalation and communication protocols were designed to operate. They
Mhm.
were built for a non-incident, right? So a clear trigger, a defined severity level. What we faced was an extended period of elevated threat with no incident, يعني, crisis story. Our playbooks were not written for sustained ambiguity.
Okay.
We had to make real-time judgment calls about when and how to communicate upward and how frequently to update our risk posture here without creating alarm fatigue. So that's the gap we have since fixed, uh,
Okay.
building what we called like a gray zone here protocol, a structured way to manage and communicate during this sustained elevated threat period. Not just discrete incident.
Okay. 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 All right. But can you just repeat that? You said a gray zone protocol. Okay. Can you elaborate a bit on that? I'm just
Yeah,
curious
which is a
about it.
structured way to manage and communicate. So again, it's when I talked about the process, so I was talking about the escalation and communication protocol, which
Escalation.
I call
Okay.
it here. Yeah.
Okay, okay, okay. Interesting. Okay, great, great. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So it was a process part that was probably, you design certain scenarios, but sometimes when the scenarios extend beyond what you thought about, that's where, it had the biggest impact, right? Okay. Okay, great, right. Okay. Faisal, was communication to your board and leadership, senior management, was that really a challenge? Did you always have the right information to communicate to them? How was this handled? Specifically, you talk about communication.
Well, communication is the key criteria. Let me
Okay.
be very open about this fact, which people often don't understand. And being cyber leaders here, the often mistake that I see is that people try to translate technology jargon to senior management, which is not understood. Risks and challenges should always be communicated as in business language to them, right?
Mm.
This becomes much easier for the senior management to understand. Imagine me talking to them about threat vectors and
Mm.
APTs, which they would
Understood.
have absolutely no idea about. Yeah, uh, and this is exactly where I normally have my challenges with other peers as well when they try and complain that their leadership doesn't understand their challenges, and they often have budget constraints towards, and therefore I question them in terms of how did you actually put up your business case to them, and I see that often it's all about technology that's been relayed to them.
Mm.
I personally think that in any crisis that where we are actually talking at this point in time, the leadership maturity is what really gets tested in
Mm.
terms of what is their stake in this whole thing. Sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's difficult. The difficult part is when I said is when there's something that they don't understand, could be in a cyber crisis or something which needs to be
Right.
translated to them. Easy is when, let's say, in the current regional crisis, there's
Correct.
not much that you need to make them aware of. They're already
Oh,
aware,
yes.
right?
Right.
It's all about the readiness that you need to actually communicate to them in terms of a structured transparency model or a framework. It doesn't have to be a framework as well, but it has to be a structured transparency mechanism where they should know in terms of what do we know about the problem and what are we trying to validate, all right? Or what are we trying to do next from here onwards, all right?
Right.
Uh, Boards or senior board members, or even to the CEO level, they don't actually expect perfection from anyone, all right? What they only understand is that the confidence that they have in their teams, looking at the situation which is being managed at present, right? So,
Okay.
interestingly enough, when we spoke about people, process, and technology, relating to the regional crisis, yes, we have technology, we have the processes, but people, you can't have control over their emotions, right? And again, as I said, in my beginning, that panic is something that one should avoid. It's a human behavior. You cannot do that. But at the end of the day, this is something as a crisis manager one needs to exercise, because when people look up to you, you are the one who uh, stand up there as their guiding light. So, and in times of uncertainty, I think communication is the key, especially with confidence, because it I think it builds more trust to the senior management rather than overconfident assumptions. Yeah.
Understood. Yeah. So I think when we communicate, I think, confidence is, I think, a very important factor there. I think especially when you're communicating to the board, the person who's communicating should be confident. Yes, like you said, you operate under a certain set of assumptions, but within those set of assumptions, you need to be able to communicate confidently to them that, these are
It's
the
not only
options.
confidently, Raghu,
Yeah.
it's also being very transparent,
Hmm.
because you can confidently lie about the situation, right?
True.
And them not being able to understand what the underlying problem is, you
Yeah,
can
right.
always
Of
do
course.
that, right? I
Of course. Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
considering the fact that imagine forget the regional crisis at this point in time.
Yeah.
Imagine a flood,
Yeah.
situation which recently happened out here. I
Hmm.
mean, you had the processes, you had the technology, but people chose their own routes, all right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Which unfortunately, because of panic, could create a bit of mayhem,
Hmm.
in terms of
Okay.
them reaching home late. You actually have to think differently and in unusual times, all right?
Okay.
In
Got it.
unusual times, you don't think, or you don't take the normal route back home. That's
Understood.
how I look at it.
Okay. Right. Got it. Yeah. Thank you. Bhavuk, yeah, Veem, you want to add something?
Yeah, I just have a story would like to share here, which is supporting what Faisal said, which is panicking here. So I remember one time I was managing a team, and they found some alerts, and they were all panicking. Hey, we found an alert. I think we got some hits, and we really need to take action very fast. Blah blah blah. And I was calm in a way to be confirmed before you read the alarm here. And after a lot of investigation, we realized it was a false positive, and the team came back to me, said, we were shocked how calm you were in handling this situation. I think the key point here, as Faisal said, is the leader. The leader, if the leader is not really confident enough or strong enough, he might or she might be affected by the team panic and take the wrong decision at the wrong time. So this is a key point here, as Faisal said also.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Veem. Bhavuk, from a regulatory point of view, did regulation become a hurdle, or were there specific regulatory obligations that became hurdles at some critical points during your, a crisis disruption?
I've seen regulation more of an enabler, right?
Okay.
Regulation is a problem if your internal picture is fuzzy. right? So if
Okay.
you're doing the right things, you're having
Mm-hmm.
your cabs, you're doing your enterprise risk committee monthly, you're reviewing incidents, you're having your architectural review boards. If you're doing the right thing as you should be doing, you're having your governance meetings, everything. When the regulator comes a knocking, you will have all the answers. You will have all the evidences in place. Regulation is a problem when you're not doing it the way it should be done, right? But it also a lot of companies in the past where I've dealt with is they struggle with with regulatory bodies or regulations if they have put in a governance structure that is a mismatch of their maturity level. Some businesses are not mature enough, but the governance that they put in is too overbearing.
Okay.
And what that leads to is a systematic breakdown because governance is too much to deal with. People will start bypassing things. Processes
Mm-hmm.
are not being followed. And when something goes down and you have to file a mandatory report with your regulator and you start going to looking into things, oh, did this cab happen? Who approved this changing? Nothing was happening because the governance was too much in place. So you always have to strike a very nice balance. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's very nice to put in an amazing enterprise risk framework on a piece of paper, have 17 steer codes guiding everything across the business. But if they're not working for the nature of the business that you have, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Specifically around, like, for example, when there is a crisis in itself, right?
Yeah.
How much are regulators involved, and during that such times, will regulation in itself become a hurdle, or does it become an obstacle then?
It's not really a hurdle, see, because regulators are people as well at the end of the day. Yes, they have a certain responsibility. I'll give you a classic example right now that has happened, right? One of our operating companies is subject to DOH regulations, and UAE has extremely strict standards around data residency of patient healthcare data around PHI, right?
Right.
But when that incident happened, we did speak to Dr. Mansouri, who's the chairman of DOH, and they gave us the go ahead. In fact, they gave it to everyone that we are, for the short term mitigation plan, allowed to take data out of UAE and put it in other AZs or backup places, obviously making sure that the data is secure and encrypted. The regulator will not be unreasonable with you. I think a
Right.
lot of people have a unfair assumption that the
Yeah.
regulator is there to screw you. No, they're not. Firstly, they're
Yeah.
trying to protect a national or an industry agenda that they've been tasked with. And if you work with them, they will be fair enough with you. But if you're trying to lie to them, deceive them, give them false representations, yes, you will get in trouble. Maybe not today, it may
Yeah.
happen tomorrow. Just be
Yeah.
open and transparent with your regulators.
And
Right.
I would actually echo what Bao just said here because I deal with the regulator desk here every now and then, and I'd be very honest. They while as I said that they're enablers, and Bao said this, I do believe that they're very supportive, and during these times as well, their crisis cell is really active and very supportive. If there is a reason to believe that our services for our business demand that we have to, migrate to a different region, provided
Yeah.
that all your security aspects and controls are in place, then they do not actually take time to give you that green light.
Yeah.
So absolutely correct, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's been our experience as well when we've reached out to regulators. And, of course, we work with a lot of regulators as well. I think they've been extremely supportive, and especially with respect to the current incident, I think a lot of customers have got that leeway because I think, at the end of the day, what is important is for the country to function, and all subsidiary, I mean, within the country, we've got businesses, organizations, all of them need to keep continuing services, provide services to the public, right? So I think that's at the end, the regulator has that in mind, while of course ensuring the security of data, right?
Which is
Okay.
true, Raghu, but one thing additional that I would like to emphasize here is that, like Pavuk again said, that they're also humans at the end of the day.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
Probably no one assumed that we would have such a huge crisis, all right?
Mm.
And even the regulator thought that we do have high availability in place.
Right.
Um, we should be all good to, be safe within the geo boundaries of the UAE. But then this is also a learning path for everyone, including them as well. So what I see in the future is definitely there'll be a lot of um, regulatory requirements related to probably even cross cloud implementation,
Yeah,
requirements.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
So that is something which indeed was missing, but I would assume that this is something on the cards, and we would see this soon.
I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll just add one little thing to it. So we did a risk assessment for data center facilities a few years ago, and actually we put one of the risk items in there. Foreign object hits external facade. It was actually a line item in there,
Okay.
but the probability of it was so low that we never really
Absolutely,
planned for it.
absolutely,
It's
Right,
not
right,
that we didn't
absolutely.
think about it,
right.
but we just didn't
Exactly.
anticipate it actually happening.
Yeah. No, I think any such thing has like force majeure. I think especially in this region, we've always put that like extremely low probability, right? Even whether it's
Yeah.
something like an earth, all force
Yeah.
majeure incidents have always been low probability.
No.
But like, we live in a time when multiple companies have actually exercised or activated force majeure now. So, so this is the time that we live in. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, thank you for that input. Shruti, I want to come to you about third parties. How did the whole interaction with third parties work? How did your third party support? What is the most critical aspect of working with a third party during such time? Is there something that you'd like to touch upon there?
Yeah, yeah, because third parties are extension to our teams, right? So they are so important. Like they are our teams only because whether third parties are the ones who are supporting our technologies or the third parties who are supporting our services and business, right? So they
Mm.
are very, very important and very, very critical. And in these times, what I have seen during the crisis, that a lot of assumptions, as Faisal said, right? We have a lot of assumptions for certain things
So,
which
Mhm.
breaks, right? We see, we understand, we think, right? We have the contracts in place and we have those SLA clauses in place, and everything from the contractually point of view looks very, very good. But when these crises happens,
Mm.
since they are not practically in our premises, right?
Mm.
Those communication do becomes a challenge, right? There are various ways, and we, with the organizations which are so dynamic, and we have so many technologies and services, just to prioritize which vendor is more important is
Mhm.
also not done to that level, that vendor prioritization, that which
Mm.
services and technologies are supported, which can have the maximum impact, and those variations in terms of the SLA's reach with them. So what I have felt is like the efficiency of third party is so important that it leads from crisis to the containment, right? Like if
Mm.
they are good and they are responding good, which sometimes doesn't happen, right? Sometimes it becomes difficult to reach to them. Sometimes their response time is more, it's just like they're taking so more time that it's just not makes sense to us. So
Right.
even through these current crises also we have understood is that certain things, as Raghu has said, as Bhavak has said, like, though we have these risks, but
Mm.
we prioritize them as low, these physical security
Yeah, yeah,
risks,
yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah.
So to understand that what are the services being provided in terms of redundancy and DRs, and who is having
Mm.
those shared those
Responsibility.
responsibilities, right?
Right.
Because at
Okay.
the end accountability will always be ours, but
Mm.
that confusion always comes up more during this time of a panic when we are not prepared. And as Bhavuk said, that we have to be prepared before the incident happens,
Right,
correct,
right.
right? So
Mm.
correct.
that's very, very important and very, very true.
Right. Yeah. No, I think also, sometimes what happens is that sometimes it's also not within, there is a third party, there is a fourth party, there's an nth party, and you don't know, sometimes your testing and your resilience testing is probably not taken into account the fourth and
No.
the nth party, right? So nth party risks also start creeping in to you, especially when we have things like data residency, and a lot of your third party, fourth parties are also being hit by the same problem that you have. they are probably also hosted in the same data center
Yes,
as you
yes,
are, then
yes.
that becomes a
Then
big
you have
challenge
the
as well.
redundancies in the same region, right?
Yes,
And now it's like firefighting mode, wherein you have to transfer and you have to take care of the regulations and laws and cross
mm,
transfer, things,
correct.
and having simultaneously, right? It's not one technology. You might have multiple technologies across the
Right.
cloud environment. So very true.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think even having your robust TPRM frameworks
Mm,
is very, very
Yes.
imperative and very
yeah.
important to have. Uh,
Yeah.
Going through the contracts very clearly, understanding whether there are subletting fourth parties or fifth parties is extremely, extremely important for us to know. We often talk about the supply chain and having a third party involvement, which is largely every business depends on, by the way. But again, as you rightly said, Shruti, that then we have a fourth party and the fifth party involved, which we're not really aware of, and this is what
Right.
I think needs to be focused on, or
Yeah.
emphasized.
Yeah.
So one of the ways by which, like I said, TPRM
Mm,
historically just tends to look at your primary,
yeah.
and said the modern world is more about your supply chain. What does your
Correct.
downstream load look like? And so the one of the ways that we do is we contractually force our supply chain to do disclosures to us on all
Correct.
their primary suppliers so that we get visibility into our own how brittle our overall supply chain is. Because like you said, you're running OpenAI, which is dependent on Oracle services, and suddenly Oracle goes bankrupt and your chat GPT stops working.
Yeah.
What the hell is happening? Because you have no idea. So you need to have the full visibility of the
Absolutely.
levers that pull at your suppliers as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think, and I think specifically now in the UAE, there's even like a third party cyber supply chain risk policy also that has been brought out by the council. And that's an area I think that everybody is sort of looking at. It's become so important for organizations. I mean, the fact of the matter is that you cannot do everything in-house. I mean, you are going to have to procure some software, some hardware, some service, some from someone, and they themselves will also have to do some part of it from somebody else. So it's like Bhavik mentioned, you need to have that visibility across your supply chain. Yeah, right. So I think we just sort of coming to the end of our time. So what I'd like to do is probably, just before we close, I want to have like one question to each of you. We go with the same question, probably to say, okay, something has happened, but now if you'd like to, go back, 12 months, a year, and make an investment in one thing, right? Whether it's technology or a particular capability for your people or process, what would that be? So maybe I'll start with Shruti, with you itself. Maybe you want to tell us your input on this.
It's such a tricky question, Raghu, when you're saying one, right? So it's just so difficult. I will just take 2 minutes and laughing about it because it's so difficult that one investment, right? When we've been
Stocks,
asking.
say stocks.
Stock.
Yeah.
Invest in the stock. Yeah. At least the ones that will go up, right? Right.
Yeah. So I think from the perspective which I have seen that monitoring is very important. Timely alerts are very important so that if we get timely alerts, we are able to take some actions. If we are not getting an alert and an incident is already done and getting more worse and worse, and as Faisal said, that timely response,
Okay.
talking to that L1, right? Talking to that L1 SOC team that I see an alert, something fishy is happening is
Right.
very important rather than,
So
something
improving.
very
Yeah.
big and fancy. So
Okay.
I think monitoring is very important. One control maybe in through the logging, through monitoring, however is possible.
Okay. Okay. Weem, do you want to give an input on that? I mean, what, according to you, where would you invest? I mean, if you had a chance to go back 12 months, no stocks, okay? So stocks are off the table, but if you could go back and invest in a technology or a capability,
Yeah,
um,
he
or a
had put us
particular.
on mute and had a good laugh. So yeah.
Yeah, honestly, again, I would say it is very tough to say which area exactly you need to invest on, but I would still stick with the investing on the people.
Okay.
People is the key, the most important thing, but overall for the most of the organization, because if you have process in place and technology in place, but they don't have the right people to to act upon and follow the process and use the right tool at the right time, everything will be broken at the end of the day. So the culture and the people is a key point here. But I'm not saying that we should not invest on the other area as well. It really depends on the organization itself, how mature and how they are well invested in each one of these areas. Then you can say, hey, you can invest on this because we are not as mature as the other area as well. So
Okay.
that's my answer. Yeah.
So invest in people. So that's like, hiring the right people, training them, simulations, crisis simulations and all. So making
The
sure
whole
how they
life
respond under
cycle.
pressure.
Yeah, the whole life cycle is starting from recruiting to do drilling, do training, do awareness,
All of
the
that.
whole thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Faisal, your input on that? Yeah, you're on mute, I think, Faisal.
Am I on mute?
Yeah.
Now we can hear
No,
you.
it's okay. We can hear you, Faz.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah. Now we can hear you.
So you should invest in a good mic. Okay, so I think I agree with both Shruti. They're all perspectives that we kind of embody, and what we need to also understand is you may have the best tools, you may have the best people who you've already vetted, background checks, JD's done everything. But I think what stands very important and what we often lack in terms of doing is you've rightly mentioned something as crisis simulation, or even cross-functional drills, right? How often do we actually get into the act of preparing ourselves? Because there's a famous saying where when a real crisis hits, you don't rise to the occasion. You actually fall back to the level of your preparation. So the thing which I really want to emphasize is that it's all about how the readiness, the preparedness that you have. Are you actually doing tabletop exercises? Are you actually simulating? This is something that I would heavily want to, emphasize on and periodically see this happening.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Faisal. Babak, your thoughts?
I mean, it's like as everybody said, it's a really hard and tempting question, right? Especially as a techie nerd, you want the next best shiny thing to help you out. But I'm gonna resist from that, going to that direction that VM went into. It's I would invest in what I would class as the decision quality infrastructure of the organization, right? It's anything that helps makes decisions better, be it the source of truth, discipline, be it the crisis decision-making clarity, sending your senior executives on crisis management training. Sometimes just because they are a CXO doesn't mean they know everything, right? You got to send them on those trainings and courses on how to actually do those things, right? And rehearsal is essential, but I focus a lot on sequencing as well. If people know the sequence in which things have to be done, and you've got backfills in place, then it helps a lot. And have preparedness for communications, internal and external. Work with your internal communications team, have plans drawn up, have things. People, because a lot of companies will end up engaging external PR companies during times of crisis because they have not planned for it, right? Communication, effective, solid communication coming from leadership at a time of
Absolutely.
crisis can calm the nerves down. And going back to again, it can help prevent the panic situation that can start. If your leadership is visible and giving the impression that they're in charge and everything's in control, it can help a lot of the time. So I'd invest in what I call as removing ambiguity.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Babak.
Crisis.
Just want to let the audience know that if you have any questions, please do drop them in the Q&A. We'll try to see if we can address some of them at least. I have one more question that I want to ask, but maybe I would park that for the time being and try to get to the questions. We had a few questions that some of our attendees had put in during the registration itself. So maybe I'll try and start with that. And in the meantime, if we have some time, we'll try to address the questions from the audience as well. So, so if we can move to that. So one of the questions was about data residency, and I think we did address that to some
Yes.
extent. But is there any other input that you'd like to add? So the question was, how is data residency addressed during the conflict? Does anybody have anything further that you want to add specifically around this? Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah. So, like I said, your data residency is either obligated by your regulations or your contracts, right?
Mm.
So you got to negotiate with both. You got to either negotiate with your regulator or your client, because it's in both their interest for the business to continue, right? And they will give you leeway in doing that, unless, like, when we're dealing with something to do with national security or national interest matters, you don't necessarily get to bypass a data residency and then sovereignty in those aspects. So you need to have alternate plans with it. Don't see it as a blocker. Speak to your client, speaks
Very good.
to your regulator. Just don't let it fester within your organization.
And even from the perspective that you're talking to your cloud service provider to ensure that they have a roadmap. You can have an interim, maybe that technology does not sit within your geo boundaries at present, but there has to be an emphasis in line with the regulatory requirements, which they have to honor. That we need to have a clear roadmap, whether you will be here in the next 6 months or probably in 12 months time. And that is something that you makes it easier for you to convey across to your regulator, uh, and gets leeway. They would be understanding, as I did mention from the very beginning.
Okay. All right. Okay. Another question that we have is about how are we ensuring resilience plans remain effective when the crisis you're facing is fundamentally very different from what we have trained for till now. So, maybe you've trained for something, but I think, we talked about it earlier, right? When you've got your training and you've got your simulation and your playbooks, but they were for one thing, but it was for something else, right? So, any points that you'd like to add on this?
Well, I think this regional conflict, which I've seen here, at least, will add a lot more to our playbooks. All right, because definitely no one was ready for it. All right, everything was theoretically spoken about, documented, but then we need to go back to our drawing boards. We need to go back to our risk registers. We need to look back and reevaluate ourselves in terms of how are we going to actually revive or enhance the way we used to function.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
also to add to that, like, geopolitical risk has been talked about, but it's not typically on the board agenda. Like, we started talking about it a couple of years ago when we started acquiring AI chips from the US because it was relevant to us. But you go and start speaking to most businesses, geopolitics is not anywhere on their risk registers or on their agenda of the board anywhere. So businesses need to start looking at uplifting the profile from an enterprise risk perspective of how they look at the geopolitics supply chain and how it impacts their operating models.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. Okay. And the last question was about cyber insurance. People, have you found it useful? Has anybody actually claimed it?
I think with the force majeure enforcement, I think that is something, again, everyone needs to go back and look into their cyber insurance, um, in terms of how this would work out for them. I'm sure that all these clauses that we kind of not take them seriously, and then we have to, like, really cross-check them in going back into, as a learning curve for
Yeah.
I mean, for our organization, I would say, or anyone and everyone around us have to do the same, in my bet.
Yeah, and I think the one of the plus sides of thing is when we're typically taking out cyber insurance, And finance really comes back, oh, this is an unreasonable clause, it'll never happen. It's uplifting our premium. Well, you pay $10 today or you pay $100 tomorrow now. Is
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
is the situation we find ourselves in.
Okay. One of the questions that came in from the attendees now is about additional resources that are required to analyze alerts. And they're asking, like, how do you effectively manage this in terms of resource capacity? Because, you can't really, because I'm assuming this is related to the increased attacks that we are seeing now. I think we saw the article in Gulf News as well. It's gone from 150, 200,000 to like 700,000 attacks a day. So, how do you have any inputs on how they can manage the situation in terms of resourcing and capacity management? Because the cost for people to manage is also going to go high, right? So any inputs on that? Yeah.
One word, AI.
I
Because
wanted to
Automation
say
and
this.
AI.
I
Yes.
wanted to say
because
this.
at the pace at which you need to do it, there is no way that you can scale humans to do that. Your infrastructure is just literally impossible. So let's say you're in Azure or Microsoft, you can leverage Sentinel, it built in AI, security AI. There are tools available there. You just have to quickly invest and adopt them. Is it perfect? Hell no.
Yeah.
It's you have to still tune it, make it work for you, but it'll give you the agility and the speed and the scale to manage this volume of incidents.
Correct.
Okay. So I think we are just sort of right about our time now, and I think we'll probably try and close this. I just want to thank everybody who attended, especially the panelists. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to all of you and having you with us. Thank you for spending so much time with us on this, and for all the attendees who attended. Thank you so much, and we hope you found this useful. I'll hand over back to Indu now to end the session.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks, team.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
everyone.
Rako, and very sincere thank you to all our guest panelists for this truly, truly valuable discussion that we had today. And to everyone who joined us today, thank you for your time and engagement. We really hope that these perspectives on resilience prove helpful as you navigate your own organizational challenges, right? And we'll be sharing a recording of this session with you shortly. So thank you all once again and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you
Take
so
care,
much.
guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Thank you.